Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. For those of you who are astute observers of the channel, you may have noticed I changed my logo thingamajig picture. And I put up actually this logo for the channel. And shout out to my daughters who designed and made these t-shirts. I have a number of t-shirts. I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna sell merchandise on the channel. I think what I'm gonna do is just give these away. Sometimes I'm gonna just give them away to people that say hi to me. And by the way, a lot of people have been showing a lot of love, especially in the Salt Lake terminal. I've met a lot of nice people, and so that's one cool aspect of having a YouTube channel, is just meeting nice people and talking to them and learning about them, and people come up and they share their successes and their concerns, and it's nice to have that kind of community, and that's one of the things I do like about Prime. So anyway, this t-shirt design, this is Beatrice in the passenger seat, and this is me, and it's my Freightliner, and yeah, so we're gonna start making these in bulk. We're got to get the sourcing for the vinyl, and we made some samples and stuff. So I have a few with me now, and yeah, so we're gonna have some fun with that and try to rep the channel and stuff and give people some t-shirts. So anyway, there's that. So kind of an update on where I've been and what I've been doing. So I'm in Iowa right now, basically in Cedar Rapids, and excuse me, I'm parked at a Casey's, and I parked here for the past several days because I came out here. My son graduated from University of Iowa, go Hawks. And all family was in town, and extended family, and so we've just been, we had a cookout in Iowa City right by Hancher, if you're familiar with the university, in the park across the street. That was a lot of fun. We played some games, and old friends showed up. I had a friend who, she's a retired police officer. Has been a friend of mine for 36 years, and she lives here in Iowa. She grew up here in Iowa, and so she came up and met some of the family she hadn't met before, and so yeah, it was a great time. We went out to a really nice restaurant in Iowa City, and if you've never been to Iowa City has it's a college town, so there's a lot of bars, but it also has a pretty great food scene. If you're kind of a foodie, there are a lot of really good restaurants in town. Everything from one-off burrito shops all the way to fine dining and stuff. So there's some really, really nice places in town. So we had a good time. But last week, I was trying to get to this area, and I had my trainee on the truck, and I wanted to get her dropped off in Las Vegas. So we were in Southern Cal, and we took a load out of Guadalupe. And this is kind of like the theme of this particular episode. So, I'm always thinking about efficiency and how much is something costing me, and, at least understanding. Not saying I necessarily always want to mitigate the cost, but I do want to understand it. I want to know what I'm dealing with. So anyway, we go out to this shipper, and we headed out there, and there was this window that could that you could pick up in 08 to 2200. So we get out to a truck stop, and we're going to take showers, and then I sent a message, and I'm like, hey, because we didn't really have an appointment, but it said there was a window in the comments. So I'm like, can we just go out there tonight? And they're like, well, We're not sure. And sales hadn't set an appointment. So I'm like, okay, well, we're just going to go, the next morning. So we get up early, we get out there, we get there, they open at 8, we get there right at like 8:11. Excuse me, I got a little allergies. And so we get there right at like 8:11. There's 2 trucks that have been sitting, one of them at least had already been there overnight. So that was not boding well for us. But anyway, we get checked in, and this is a load that was going to go to Minnesota, to the Twin Cities area, and probably I was going to have to get it repowered so I could because it didn't deliver till Saturday morning, but Saturday is really when we were starting to have all the events for the graduation celebration, because the graduation was like people walked like 2 weeks ago or whatever. So anyway, we get there at like 8:11, get checked in, hours pass, product keeps coming in from the fields, right? This is fruit. Product keeps coming in from the fields. Trucks keep going up to the loading dock, getting loaded, leaving. More product, trucks coming and going. Product, trucks coming and going. So finally, but we had been checking in, and my co-driver went and checked in a couple of times, and they're like, yeah, we're just waiting on 3 more pallets. Well, 3 pallets of anything is not usually a lot. So, they're like, yeah, it'll be ready by 6. So already we're talking 10 hours that we would have been sitting at the shipper. So after 6, shortly after 6, like 6:15, I'm like, I said to my co-driver, I'm like, they don't have they don't have this stuff. And now the fields were already emptied out of like workers, because where we were, we could see some of the fields and stuff. And now it's like kids are done with school, people are going home, and then some people start showing up for like second shift or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, they don't have the stuff for this load, and I'm not sure we're not going to be here all night. But I wanted to get here to Iowa, so because all my family was kind of converging here and stuff. And so I went to, first I told Prime, I said, look, if we don't get in a dock by 1900, we're leaving. And then I went and told the the shipping office. I said, hey, we've been here all day. Dozens of trucks have come and gone, and we're no closer to getting loaded than we were when we came over 10 hours ago. I said, if we're not in a dock by 7 o'clock, we're leaving. And the guy's like, oh, you'll be the next one in. We're just cooling the product down. Just be patient. And I'm like, I didn't say this, but in my mind, I'm like, well, being patient ended like 3 hours ago, okay? And I started doing the math in my head, and I was like, sitting here for this long with a trainee on the truck, and I've talked about this before, but sitting here this long has cost me, or cost my company, about $1,000. And the reason is, the entire time that we're sitting there and just like, laying around inside the truck, snacking or whatever we were doing, taking naps, I'm paying that trainee. I'm paying for the truck payment, the APU payment, the insurance, everything, right? Like, it's costing me money. Plus, you look at the lost opportunity cost of how many miles I could drive in, 10 or 11 hours. And so my calculation is roughly like $1,000. So yeah, this load paid pretty well because it was fresh produce, and they often do pay well. Long haul fresh produce loads coming out of Cali pay pretty well. But I'm like, at some point, right, like all of this time is just like eroding what this load pays, what my profit's gonna be. And also I was just irked that sales sent me to a place that wasn't even close to having what I needed to get out of there. And I felt like these people were jerking us around. I mean, like, how long does it take? Because we would see the trucks coming in from the fields. It's like, how hard is it for them to say, hey, we got these guys, they already been waiting 6 hours. Get us 3 pallets of whatever it was. I don't know what it was. Organic strawberries or something, right? Which there's a hepatitis A outbreak from organic strawberries, but that's another story. And so I was just like, hey, I'm just drawing a line in the sand. So 7 o'clock, 1900 came and went. And so finally I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go use the bathroom. And I'm kind of like, in my mind, I'm kind of like, no, they got to get us in there. Well, then they put another truck showed up or was parked by us. I can't remember, but they got in the dock. So we were definitely not the next truck in the dock. And I'm kind of like, look, don't jerk me around. If you don't have what we need, because here's the thing. If we'd have checked in at 8 o'clock in the morning and they said, look, we don't have what you need, we don't know when we're going to get it, because that would have been the truth. We have no idea when it's going to come. So if you guys want to go somewhere that there's, I don't know, something besides one dirty porta-john, if you want to go somewhere where you can get something to eat, where you can get out of the truck and walk around, I would have felt better about that. I've been like, okay, just call us and we'll be over here in 15 minutes or whatever. But no, they don't tell us that. We just sit in a freaking dusty dirt lot. And, my co-driver's female. I mean, I don't care kind of where I have to go to the bathroom a lot of times, but I'm sensitive to it for other reasons, right? And, there's a couple of porta-johns. That's it. And, there's nothing else nearby. And so about 7:15, I see that other truck go in the dock. I go to the bathroom, I get back in the truck, and I say to her, let's go. And we drove away. And I said, we're just going to go to Vegas. I'm going to drop you off, and I'm going to head north. I'm going to go up to Salt Lake City, and maybe I can get a load, or maybe I'll just fly to Iowa. But I'm not going to be late. I'm not going to miss this thing. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. So probably about an hour and 15 minutes after we leave, by this time we're already back up in the mountains, crossing over into the Central Valley. We're headed towards Bakersfield. And get a call. She gets a call on her phone. So she's driving, so I'm like, can I answer? And she said, yeah. And so I answer, and this guy's like, hey, is this Brandy? I'm like, no. This is her co-driver. And I said, what's up? And he's like, yeah, can you pull into door number 5? I'm like, no. I said, we left. And he's like, well, where did you go? And I said, well, we're headed for Vegas. He's like, well, are you coming back? And then the call drops. So then he calls and he leaves a voicemail on her phone. And then, because we're going up and down, and it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And if you've been from Guadalupe headed over towards Bakersfield or whatever. And then he calls a third time, and he's like, hey, I got cut off. So are you guys gonna are you guys nearby? Are you coming back? I'm like, no, dude, we're not coming back. We sat around for over 11 hours and you guys just jerked us around. No, we're not coming back. We're not taking the load. Find somebody else to take it to Minnesota. And he's like, oh, okay. And, you know, I'm just like, I don't care if your fruit gets to Minnesota. It's not my problem, right? Like, you don't want to get me loaded and you don't want to tell me the truth and you're costing me money. I'm not interested in hauling your product, right? I got a truck. And by the way, you know, we sat there all day with our reefer running, right? So we're prepared to do the job. And they're not prepared to get the product on the truck. And, you know, they're like, oh, well, you know, this is how it goes. Well, okay, maybe that's how you run your business, but it's not how I run mine. And by the way, I've never had that happen before. I've hauled produce many times. I've never had that happen. You know, it's one thing when they're like, hey, we're just getting everything put together, you know. But I will say one time a guy didn't even show up at the loading dock. That's when I had Paul on the truck. We stayed overnight. We got paid detention and everything. But the thing is, it's not just, and I told my fleet manager, I said, you know what, man, if I didn't have someplace I absolutely had to be, I probably would have just hung on. I probably would have just hung on and ate the points. You know, I would have taken whatever detention I could get and just hung. So anyway, we drive overnight. I dropped my co-driver off in Las Vegas and I head north. And then, you know, a couple hours later, my fleet manager comes in and he's like, hey, if you want a high paying load, you're gonna probably have to get back to Cali. And I'm like, I said, no, I'm heading towards Salt Lake. So I said, he's like, well, do you want to load out of Salt Lake? I'm like, yeah, sure. So he gets me a load out of the Salt Lake area, and it worked out fine because the load was literally, it's like, you know, it's a half a mile from the terminal. So I got to the terminal, I was able to get a shower, got a good trailer. I had to swap out trailers, got over to the 01, picked it up, just came back over to the yard, did my 10 hours, and then I just headed east. I delivered down in Missouri, just not very far from Iowa, so it worked out fine. Did I lose money on the deal? Probably. But I had something I wanted to do. And I feel like sometimes as drivers, we just have to say, hey, enough is enough. You guys have zero, you know, some of these shippers have zero respect for our time and our efforts, right? We show up ready to work. We show up ready to do our job. And they haven't even started to consider what it's going to take to get us back on the road. And that's how we make money. Now, I have a load already. I'm already dispatched on a load that's picking up over in Illinois. It's maybe an hour and a half from here. So it's a good load. Well, it's an adequate load. It meets my needs, right? Because then I can swing back through Vegas, pick up my trainee, and drop this load off in Tolleson, Arizona. Try not to get a parking ticket this time. But I called over there and they're like, no, it's not ready because it's a drop and hook at a meat producer. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna just go in the truck stop here, take a shower, because my son dropped me off at my truck last night so I could be ready for today. But since it's not gonna be ready and it's not actually due to be ready until 9 tomorrow morning, and this place is probably gonna be closer to 9 tomorrow morning, I talked to my daughter. I said, hey, I'll get a shower. They're going out to dinner. They're going to come pick me up in a couple hours, and I'm just going to hang out with them tonight. I'll come back to the truck, call, get up at 4 in the morning, call, and see. But here's the difference between waiting here and how we were waiting in Guadalupe, California. I can go somewhere. First of all, I'm already somewhere, right? I'm at a place that has showers, food, you know, drinks, bathrooms, clean bathrooms, etc. Right? That's the first thing. The second thing is that, you know, I don't have to stay in the truck, right? Like there's somebody that's going to come pick me up. We're going to go get dinner up in Cedar Rapids, and meet up with some friends, and so it's all good. So yeah, this is technically costing me money because the truck's sitting still, but I don't have my co-driver on, so I'm not paying. Well, actually, I probably am paying her anyway, but it's fine. But you get my point, right? It's a different scenario, and it's a scenario that I'm okay with because I got something else I can do. I can hang out with my kids because my wife and my youngest have already headed back to the East Coast because my wife has to be at work tomorrow. So anyway, you know, I spend a lot of time thinking about, you know, the big picture, not just how much do I make per mile, and you know, but I take loads based on my needs sometimes. And I took that load out of Guadalupe thinking it would meet my needs, but when it didn't, I was like, okay, I'm leaving. You know, and people will say, well, you committed to the load. Yeah, I did commit to the load, but I didn't commit to waiting 11 hours. You know, it's like if you enter into a contract and then the other party cannot deliver on their part of the bargain. And by the way, the appointment that finally did get set was from 0800 to 1700. So I stayed over 2 hours past when the appointment window was. And by the way, they were just jerking us around all day. And homie don't play that shit. So if they'd have been honest, and also if it hadn't been that I needed, you know, and that I needed and wanted to get to Iowa for a certain purpose by a certain time, you know, I would have waited them out, right? I would have just played the game. But every once in a while, you know, you may need, as a driver, to just put your foot down and say, look, here's my deadline, right? I'm paying for this truck. I pay for the fuel. I pay for everything. And I'm paying for the person that's sitting here or taking a nap. You know, I'm going to call some of the shots. I mean, I have a job to do, but I'm going to call some of the shots. So I'd love to hear what people think about this. I mean, I know some people are going to be like, oh, well, you broke your promise or whatever. But I'm okay with it. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys like the new logo. I think it's kind of cool. And I will see you around, and you know, we'll pass out some t-shirts and we're going to be making more. And goal is at some point to start doing some live shows, and there'll be like some trivia live shows, and people will be able to get t-shirts that way too. We'll just, you know, they'll answer a question right, and I'll send you a t-shirt. So anyway, talk to you soon, and be safe out on the road. Bye.